As a child, we all long for a hero. As a society as a whole, we search for that leader that can be our hero. But as we mature and as we grow, it dawned on us that the hero is inside every one of us. And in the world's social media, we all start at zero. And slowly we search deep within ourselves to find who we are. And we have that moment of truth where we embrace that the hero that we've been searching for has been there all along. It is living deep inside of every one of us. And we start embracing that journey and we become that hero that we search for.
Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to episode 66 of Zero to Hero. Our next guest is awesome. She thrives in the face of chaos. That's kind of what her whole business is about. Her name is Kimberly Dewitt. She is the CEO of DeWitt Consultancy DeWitt Consultancy Partners. So let's go ahead and bring her in. Kimberly, how are you today?
Hello, everybody. Hey, partners.
How you doing?
I am doing good today. How are you?
Good. Oh, I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing excellent. Thanks for coming on the show. So before we get into really the meat of the show, tell everybody a little bit about what you guys are doing at DCP.
Sure. So I am the CEO and Chief Strategist of DeWitt Consultancy Partners. What we do, we are an international boutique IT firm / organizational consultant firm that essentially helps every level of organization to address and conquer their chaos. So whether that be projects that are way overdue, whether that be the small business just getting started and you have no idea how to start to implement organizational process or to try to figure out how to turn that dream into actual reality that lives past the statistic, the awful SBA statistics, very wide range of skill set. So in general, I have over 25 years-ish of IT experience. I've done everything from writing code to sitting with the C-suite and helping them work through, working through IT to better implement within their company, but also being a data advocate and a data guardian as well at many levels of an organization. So we are currently based here in Kansas City, Kansas. You'll see my awesome new corporate office behind me, all purpled up.
Love it.
And we also have a satellite office in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Part of our global expansion that we're currently working on is what we call the Technology Learning Alliance, which is going to be a physical and virtual structure that is going to really house a lot of the services that DCP provides in terms of professional development, personal development, corporate training, all at an industry level standard. So for folks who, for example, myself, who's in the IT industry, there are many different types of certifications that you can get, from project management professional to CompTIA to networking certifications, all kinds of wonderful services. What I find, though, is that they're not always as accessible and easy to get to. So part of the work of the TLA, both here domestically and internationally, is not to recreate the wheel, but to make the wheel easier to get to say the least. So
I love that.
Right. So through the TLA, we're going to be offering different types of classes and trainings. You'll be able to come do your tests there for your certifications at some point, get your certifications there, any type of continuing education that you would like to do on a personal level. How many IT people don't know how to speak because we write code all day? Not all of us feel comfortable getting in front of a camera and talking to folks.
Sure.
That's absolutely a soft skill that anyone can work on. So part of the TLA's work and our mandate at some point is to take a little bit of that organizational chaos on the personal level and try to conquer that and create better opportunities and for anyone to be able to your point of your whole theme of this thing, become their own hero.
Yeah.
And become a hero to those around them. So a lot of the chaos we experience on a professional level is not impossible to get over, whether it be personal or organizational. It's the intention and having the right tool for the right job, having the right people around you, the right support system. So the work of DCP is being that support system. So we work with people, we work with teams, we work with business owners and organizations to do all of that, to be able to provide that diverse, well thought out, pragmatic approach to dealing with your chaos. So it's generally it's worked out pretty well for us. We're very good at what we do. And I find that at the end of our interactions, companies, teams, people find that what they were experiencing, it went a little bit easier because they had a partner. And that's why I started our interaction here with saying hello to our partners. We consider our clients to be our partner clients, not our client partners. And there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference because we think of vendors and we think of consultants as people who just do tasks. They come in, they do, and then they leave. But DCP, we operate on many levels. So we like the chaos. We like being in the middle of the complexity and figuring out the best way forward and doing that in a organized way, which tends to be the reason why there's chaos in the first place, is because you're lacking that organization.
I love that. And it sounds like you're doing arm in arm with them as well, right? So, us being a third party, right, J29, kind of in a similar situation, right, where oftentimes we are considered, a vendor, right, and we have the same taste in our mouth that you probably do with that, where we're like, hold on, we're much more than just a vendor, right? We want to be there with you, in the trenches, figuring this whole thing out. So, I love some good. You brought up some great points there. So, one of the things that I wanted to mention, our founder, our CEO, actually comes from the IT world as well. We're not a tech company, right? So it sounds like you've had a similar experience where people in tech just kind of have like things thrown at them throughout their corporate life, and they're kind of forced to learn on the run. And I think it's because everybody else kind of sees that they're able to understand this thing that most people don't understand, right? And code and technology. Was that the experience for you? Is that kind of where DCP came from, was just the abundance of skills that you were forced to learn? Or talk a little bit about that.
So the one thing you will learn about me before I answer your question, I am very honest to a point.
Love it.
I will not BS you around. And I tell my clients that as well. So those that work with me know that already. Yeah. Those who are just learning about me, be aware. As you can see, I am Black and I am a woman. If you didn't notice already. So the IT industry as a whole, there is not the greatest representation for minorities, for women, especially within the executive ranks.
Yeah.
And certainly down in the trenches, you see a lot more diversity in the trenches, but as you get higher, obviously it goes down considerably. Yeah. So I started out in IT when I was a teenager. And I came across, stupid story, I promise it's stupid. I came across I decided I wanted to be a white hat hacker. So mind you, little Black girl. And this is back in the days of AOL, when you had the whole screaming modem behind you and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow or another, I managed to actually hack my own network. Now, whether I actually hacked my own network or it just looked like it because I was pushing some buttons and did something, doesn't matter. I was drawn. I was hooked to, I want to do IT stuff. I want to do computer stuff. I want to do code stuff. Hooked me. Absolutely hooked me. So I started out in data, actually, and found that I really love the data space. I love the numbers. I love the insights, the infinite insights that you can pull from data. But I also like the other side of the equation about data in terms of the responsibility that comes with data, and the responsibility that comes with data can answer any question you want it to answer, but that's a double-edged sword because it depends on how you ask the question. It depends on who's asking the question, why you're asking the question. So you apply that to a business sense, you'll quickly find that being in the data space and being a data analyst, which is where I basically started in IT, you have to really develop a sense of, I'm okay with the general chaos of data, the general uncertainty, the general lack of boundaries, because in a very simple sense, you get out what you put into it. So if you have an organization that doesn't have very good policies and procedures in place, then the insights that you can pull from that are also negatively affected. So over the course of my IT career, I really loved how data is the center point and the crossroads of any organization, of any team. Just us sitting here, we're accruing data, we're creating data. Whether it's tracked or not is a different story. But very organically, data is as fundamental to us as the sun is in the sky. So I love that, just that width and breadth of that space. And that forces you to become very versatile from a conceptual standpoint. So in terms of IT, I've been able to stay in the data space, and I've done data warehousing and built data warehouses from scratch and played with all the wonderful tools that are out there to better visualize data and had fun with that. But at some point you start to plateau. And so for a little minority girl like myself in the IT field, I started hitting glass ceilings pretty early in IT. And unfortunately, why I hit those ceilings was the very typical stories that you can see in any case study. You have managers telling you that you don't have the right degree, that you don't have the right experience, that you have managers who actively sabotage your career. I mean, the same cutthroatness that exists in any industry, it exists in the IT industry as well.
Sure.
So over time, I had to develop more diverse skill sets to be proactive when I go to someone and say, you need to promote me, or you need to give me more money, or you need to give me more title. And that worked to a certain degree for a good while. I formally stayed in IT for about 20 years, I would say. My business has been open about 3 years. So at some point, my career goal was I wanted to be a CIO. Well, you can look through the Wall Street Journal and Forbes and Google. There are not a ton of minority CIOs out there in the world, unfortunately. Right. So at some point, I reached a point where I have this incredibly good, diverse skill set. Obviously, I'm in IT, but yet I'm sitting here talking to you. So I discovered early on, I can go write code, or I can go sit in the C-suite and facilitate conversations and be a liaison and a data guardian, those things that I mentioned earlier. That's a really diverse skill set for an IT person.
Yeah.
In addition to the technical aspect and being able to bridge the technical and the business side. That is a very unique, awesome skill set that many minorities have because they have to have it, which is really wonderful. But at some point, I literally got tired of giving companies this really great diverse skill set because it wasn't benefiting me. It wasn't for my continued personal and professional development. And essentially, funny enough, I reached a point in my career, my formal career, where IT companies would, not necessarily IT companies, companies in general, would be perfectly happy to give me a ton of money, but not give me the title to go with it or the responsibility to go with it. So I got to a point where it was just, money's not everything. And I had higher visions for myself. I know I can go out there and make really good money in IT, but am I being an example? Am I making the path a little bit easier for that next little minority developer that wants to get into the field? And do I want people to see me banging my head against the ceiling that's may have a few more cracks in it because of me, but certainly not breaking anytime soon? Or do I want people to see me pivot? Do I want people to see that, okay, you hit a ceiling, what's your next move? What are you going to do next? And so a little bit of how DCP started was why give my skills to people, to groups and organizations that don't appreciate it?
Yeah.
Why do that? Why get stuck in the corporate hierarchy, the corporate mind think of the only way you can progress, the only way you can validate yourself, the only way you can show your friends and family that you are successful is to move up in a company. And it took me way too long to realize that, but I finally did. And I came up with the idea of DeWitt Consultancy Partners, which is doing exactly what I love to do, which is help, which is be able to sit in a room with a person, build that trust, and say, tell me what your problem is, because I'm pretty sure I can help you work through it. Because a lot of it is I've been through it myself in some form or another, or just the fact that I've had so many different corporate experiences, personal experiences, that you get into a mindset of the only barriers that are out there are the ones I create for myself. So whatever you bring to me, whatever you choose to bring to the table, oh, I'm sure we can find a way to get past it. Don't feel like you're stuck, because that being stuck is a concept. There are plenty of options out there. Maybe you just need someone like me that can sit and help you think on multiple levels of how to address your problem. We'll address it and we'll get it figured out.
Sure. Somebody that can lay out those choices for them, right? Like, you don't see the choices, right? You've got choices. Here they are, right? Put them down.
You may not like all the choices.
That's usually what it is, right?
Yes. And I find that gap there on a corporate level is no different than the small business owner, which is mostly my target market. On an enterprise level, C-suiters have the same conversations about how do we improve operations? How do we improve our bottom line? How do we introduce the triple bottom line if that's something that we're interested in? How do we get this next initiative started up and properly thought through? The same types of situations that small business owners go through. Existing small businesses that are looking to grow. So they've grown past the baby stage. Now they're getting a little bit bigger to where now they need to start introducing process, which can be difficult. That is an incredible amount of chaos and change that can be very difficult to confront if you don't have a good support system that can show you the path. And so I am right in the middle of all of that because I've been in corporate America for so long. So I know process, I understand operations, and working in IT, IT tends to be the crossroads of every organization, whether it be accounting, financial aid, operations, fulfillment, all of that stuff interacts with IT and its various processes in some form or another. So that allowed me to really build up this really great skill set that I can apply to the small business owner that wants to start their own business. And then 2 years later, you've got this great growth, but now you don't know what to do because now you're running into problems because you don't have operational process. And those are things that I can bring all of that corporate experience and say, I can help you build a baby bureaucracy because that's essentially what you're needing to do, right? Operational process and training and all of those little minor details that tend to get deprioritized when you're starting a business. So not only can I help with that, I've experienced it myself in terms of starting my own business and having to prioritize what's important and what's not. And then at some point I need to circle around and address those things because those little tiny pieces of deprioritized chaos and disorganization, those are going to come bite you in the butt 2 years from now when you're ready to grow, but you don't have a training plan for onboarding new employees, things like that.
Yeah. I want to ask you about this a little bit too, because at J20, we work with small businesses, we work with larger enterprises as well, right? And one of the things that I absolutely love about small business is their ability to pivot, right? And to make changes and to make choices quickly, right? Without having to, have the meeting about having a meeting about the meeting that we need to have about this thing that we might possibly do 10 months from now, right? Which
Yes.
is typically what we run into more in the corporate setting. So what's your experience been with, like, when it comes to processes, and kind of what are you doing to kind of help them realize that maybe we don't need a million meetings to figure out this one thing, right? Maybe it can be done in one meeting.
Well, I will tell you that as a small business, we can't afford to have meetings for meetings.
Right.
Right. We don't have that kind of time, for one.
Right. Or money. Yeah.
Or the money.
People are being paid to be in those meetings, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The other piece of that ties in really well to your question is there's a certain purity and a certain go get it done that small businesses have that they start to lose over time the bigger that you get. So that's unfortunately that's the trade-off of being a small business versus growing bigger and becoming more of an enterprise type of venture. But that it's an opportunity to set up really good habits and disciplines as well. Because when you start a small business, the only points of reference you have is from your previous work experience or life experience, what your current personal financial habits are. So if you don't balance your checkbook on a personal side, you're less likely to do that on the business side. But what's important there in terms of process is taking the time when you first start out, within that first, I say 2 to 3 years, and I'm coming up on my third year, so I can definitely speak to this. When you're in that first couple of years range, starting to take the opportunity to get into the good habits that you need to be in to be able to sustain your company past the first year. I forget the current statistic, but there's the very standard statistic out there of how long a small business will last once it opens before it closes. Yeah. And generally, I want to say it's been about a year, maybe a year and a half. I haven't checked lately, but that's a very critical period. Part of the reason why businesses fail is lack of process, lack of planning. You have a great dream and you go out there and open a retail space, but you don't have an inventory control system in place. So you have no idea how much money you're spending. You have no idea what your inventory turnover is. Some of those more enterprise things, you have to find ways to implement that on the smaller level. And that level of discipline, that level of business education tends to be what is lacking when people start a small business. And that's really unfortunate because there are so many resources out here that will help educate you, that will help you build a business plan, that will be mean to you and say, what is your financial plan for year 2? How are you going to stay open past year 2? People like me that can sit and help you plan better in terms of how you want to implement this dream, how we're going to be sitting at this same table 5 years from now. And you're coming to me and saying, oh my God, look at everything I've done. And I've made it and I'm doing okay. And continuing to progress, that kind of thing. But that a lot of that is driven by introducing process, by introducing boundaries and foundational pieces within your company. And even once you get a company started, that work doesn't stop. A lot of my work right now is working with established enterprise companies where they have process, they have bureaucracy, they have people and employees and meetings for meetings. That is still there.
Yeah.
But what they don't have is the view at multiple levels. So you will either have teams that are siloed where they're thinking about what's in front of them. They're not necessarily thinking about what the executive sees.
Right.
And also vice versa, where you'll have an executive team that has a very good strategic plan, has a financial projection out for the next 5 years, but your operational implementation of that absolutely sucks. So part of bridging that gap, part of it is process, And part of it is the people aspect of being a bridge to help bridge those communication gaps, bridge those planning gaps, bridge those perspective gaps. Because just as much as the guy in the trenches can't necessarily see what the executive sees and how they see the world, the same is the same at the executive level. They often come up with really great plans and initiatives, but you don't necessarily always think about how that impacts the person actually having to do that work in the trenches. So that comes down to a lot of the process, the communication, the being the objective person in the middle that can look at all of those various levels, lead the conversation and say, you know, I'm seeing a couple of yellow flags here. Let's talk about that. And creating that safe space so that you can address those in a more organized manner to try to minimize the risk and minimize the negative impacts to what you're trying to do.
Some really good points there. And I want to bring up, I kind of want to ask you one more question, and then we got to move on to the bigger part of the show. Otherwise, I'm going to have you here all day talking, giving out free advice here.
Yeah, don't get me, if you noticed, I like to talk. So, which is, don't get me talking.
Hey, anybody that gets on a show is down to talk, right? That's what we're all here for.
I'll take the
I would never. But no, I do want to ask you about this. So, you know, I come from a corporate environment myself. Luckily, I'm out of that and blessed to be with the, you know, small boutique J29 that I'm with now, right?
Doesn't it feel good?
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I tell you what, you never feel more heard than you do in a small business, right? But in those corporate environments, so I did sales, which, to your point, has a good reputation or a bad reputation of very much focusing on the sales part, right? And nothing else on the outside. And I think similarly to that, the executives that I dealt with in my previous companies understood the C level and not really what was happening in the sales side. So how much of what you're doing is really kind of, you know, obviously there's systems that need to be put in place, but how much of it is really developing that trust between those two silos to where, you know, if one silo says something, the other one doesn't just shrug it off, right? But they hear that out, they kind of dive into that a little bit more than they normally would.
Yeah, that is a great question. So I will say that you have to have a sense of approachability and a sense of diplomacy. So I would say in building up my IT career, I was always very aware of the angry Black woman stereotype. So I learned very early on in my career that I can't get loud. I can't talk strongly. That I have to learn how to get my point across, even when I'm right, even when I have a right to be upset or be angry. I have to learn how to manage the personalities around me so that the focus stays on the issue and not on me and how I'm presenting the issue. And so I've been able to apply that across my career in what I call being a bridge. So exactly in your situation and in the example that you presented, when you have two organizational departmental groups that are just missing each other like ships in the night, being able to come in, one, you are presenting yourself as definitely a neutral party, and you're keeping the focus on, we need to make the organization better. If that means that your team gets better as a result, and if that means at the executive level, you get humbled a little bit as a result, then accept that. That's part of the process of the organization getting better. It's not about Joe Blow, the VP of sales, who hasn't done a in the trench sale for over 5 years. It's about how can the VP of sales better support their salespeople below them, the ones that are actually out there doing the grinding. And so I have found that my best process for that, and something I've used consistently, is I typically get my direction from an executive team because they're having an issue. So I will go to the impacted team and I will embed myself, as it were. because I've been in the trenches. Most of my career has been in the trenches. I didn't hit management, formal management, until 39, 40, something like that. So I've definitely been more in the trenches, but doing managerial stuff. That's a whole separate conversation. Definitely been more in the trenches than in the executive level. But I use that experience and I use that perspective and I use the fact that I am considered a safe space because I come into the conversation very calmly. I don't come in I'm very reserved and I'm very self-aware of how I present to people. And that creates a sense of comfort for people because even when you first meet someone, you are creating a first impression for them, whether it be valid or not, whether it be biased or not, you're still creating a first impression.
Right.
And so my first impression when I try to deal with two groups that need to collaborate better or more is I'm approaching each group as, tell me about you. Tell me how you guys work. Tell me what issues you are having. And then I take that from both sides and I try to in a very data-based format, anonymize it, analyze it, put it back out into a form where the emotion's taken out of it, where the bias is taken out of it, where the clickiness of organizational teams is taken out of it.
Yeah.
We try to focus more on the root causes of why a team is doing what it's doing. So who made this decision? Why is it this way? If you could change it, what would you do? Why would you do it that way? And depending on which direction I'm needing to go, if I'm going from a departmental team to an executive team, I'm going to the executive team and I'm saying, you were part of the reason why I'm here is because your team has this level of process and efficiency that is affecting sales and revenue. But did you know that blah, 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 blah has been in place from a year ago that never got rectified? Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Or I wasn't aware of the impacts of that.
Right.
So being able to take the feedback from teams, bring it to a central place, a central safe space that it can be discussed in a non-judgmental manner is really important. And that's where you start to build that trust. That's where you start to be able to open up people to have a conversation. Because if teams could have these conversations on their own, they'd already have them, right? And so what I hear a lot is, well, we tried to suggest this, but it didn't work. Or we're not getting listened to, or we don't get listened to. And that's a lot of that is part of being in an enterprise organization, right? Because you always have someone above you who thinks they know everything.
Right.
Right? That gets worse the higher that you go.
Right.
And that's not necessarily a fault of any particular team. It's just losing a little bit of the perspective of we're on the same team and just bringing it back to that center to say, we're here because we have a job to do. We want to do it well because we want the organization to succeed, not because it's our paycheck, but because we literally want the organization to succeed.
Right.
That's supposed to be a successful part of why we're here, right? So if we can focus on the root causes of things and be able to get to those root causes and be able to have a real discussion with people that you trust and building up that trust that you're going to tell someone something in confidence, you're going to find a way to anonymize it, generalize it, group it together with other insights that you are finding so that you can speak your mind and know that Jim Bob, the VP, oh, wow, there's Mary again. I know who said that, right? So it's a very nuanced conversation. And I find that I'm really good at that. I'm really good at that bridging the gap idea of being able to go to executives and help break down the people below them and put that in a form that they are willing to address and willing to be a change maker and be a change agent outside of their own egos and outside of the bigger organizational initiatives that they have to deal with, to be fair to them. Because it's about perspective, and maybe having someone in the middle there that's their only goal. Let me help you get some perspective.
Yeah.
That's been something I've been really good at.
I think DCP is going to work out for you, but if it doesn't, it sounds like you've got a great pivot into being like a family marriage counselor, because that's almost what you're doing, right? It's almost like, hey, we're on the same team here, guys, right? Let's figure this thing out together and how to communicate and do this a little bit better. But it makes perfect sense that it's like that in these corporate environments as well, right? Because it's almost like fighting with your sibling. It's like, no, I'm better, and this is why, right? And then sibling over there is saying the same thing, right? And it's like, all right, let's, you're both good. Let's bring it back in the middle. Let's get it back together. We're a family, right? We're all going the same direction. So, but I do love
presenting it and being open about it,
right? And I love how you're getting in there, right? With tell me who you are, right? Because people don't get asked that question very much, but I'm going to ask you right now. Okay, that same question. So not DCP, right? Who is Kimberly Dewitt? So give us your elevator pitch. If somebody were to meet you right now on the street and ask you who you are, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say that's a really hard question. I do not do very well talking about myself. Most people don't.
Yeah.
I would say that I am someone that has really big dreams, but because of my very unique experience, I feel like I'm constantly fighting imposter syndrome. So if I had to pick a quality about myself that I would say really signified me in this current phase of my life, it would be chronic imposter syndrome addict.
Yeah, I feel that. I myself deal with that like you wouldn't believe, right? And
yes,
I think everybody does to an extent, but we're so like, no, mine's worse, right? It's like we're like very confident in the fact of like having imposter syndrome, right? It's the only thing that's like, no, this is
absolutely. So I feel like that, and like I said, I'm a very honest person. I feel like that really defines who I am in this third year of being an owner and being this new version of Kim. This new version of Kim has never owned a business before. This is her first business. So I'm learning a lot. I'm being forced a lot out of my comfort zones. And for someone who likes chaos and likes change, and I love unexpected change. It doesn't bother me. I'm not someone that gets scared because something doesn't go my way or a block gets thrown in front of me. I take that as a challenge, which is really great. But that also means that you stay out of your comfort zone a lot. And so as a result of that, me, Kim, I always feel like a certain level of unstableness. But that comes with the territory of being someone who gets off on fixing chaos and fixing complexity.
Well, and always pushing your boundaries too, right? I think that's, being uncomfortable, I mean, it's something that's always out there and trying to get better, right? Which one of my favorite things is like, 1% better every day, right? If you're getting 1% better every day, it's drastic improvements. And it's, you're 100% right. I feel exactly what you're saying. I know exactly what you're talking about because I feel that same thing all the time, with really, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, right? But it does always kind of lead to that like unsteadiness and what's going to happen. But yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's exciting though, right? It's fun. So
it is. It's exciting. It's equal parts exciting and terrifying.
Yeah.
I will tell you that. And that's something that I deal with every day. And it's something that I didn't really pay much attention to as I got older. But now that I'm a CEO, it really does change your mindset. It really does change fundamentally who you are. And it feels it feels like I'm in this state of redefinition. And I don't know what that looks like. And I think to get to your point about who I am, I think that really touches on it, is that I'm not quite sure yet, because this is so new compared to the entirety of my life. I've been alive 42 years. And this tiny portion of it is very significant and unlike any previous iteration of my life. So I feel like I'm redefining myself, which adds to that uncertainty and that feeling of instability, but it's also making me sharper as well.
Yeah.
And I like the changes that I'm going through. I like the fact that I walk into a room expecting recognition now. I don't walk into a room anymore and stand to the side and wait to be acknowledged. And that is very different for me, because I grew up in IT where my voice rarely gets heard in anything.
Yeah.
It got better over time, but for the most part, I mean, you're still always struggling to be heard. But now I walk into rooms, if I don't get spoken to, I will walk up to whoever I designate as the important person in the room and make myself known. So that kind of personal development is really impactful, and it's new for me. And it feels comfortable, which I didn't expect.
Yeah.
I did not expect that. So personally, I'm definitely growing emotionally. I'm definitely growing mentally. I'm doing what I'm good at. It doesn't feel like a job. So in that regard, I feel like a lot more of my natural personality comes out, because I am engaging. I can have great conversations. I can jump from topic to topic and be able to interact in a more organic way. That's why, if you recall, when we first got together, I said, throw whatever you want at me. I'm good with organic conversation.
Yeah.
That is a piece of me that I've always been able to do to a certain extent, but in these past couple of years and relearning what new Kim looks like, that has been something that has really just come to the top. And people are terrified when you give them an unexpected question. Not me, throw it at me. I'm good, which is new and different and exciting and very useful. But I think that's one of the bigger things that I've noticed in terms of who I am, and those great positive changes I feel like are coming around me.
Yeah, you know what? It's really funny. So obviously we do 2 episodes a week here, every week, just about. And so I see people that I'll invite people on the show, right? And I get one of 2 personality types usually when I invite people to be a guest on the show. They either want to know every single thing that's going to happen during that show, including the questions that they're going to be asked, right? Or they're like, yeah, I'll do it. What time? Yeah, and that's it, right? And I love talking to both of them. They both have interesting perspectives, right, and points of view and ways that they do things, right? But to your point, I find that really interesting that some people are like, I need to know what you're going to talk to me about, especially if it's live, right?
And especially if it's business related, because you feel like you want to get your time in to say all the great things about your business and promote yourself and take advantage of this opportunity and everything else. But to your point, getting to know the person is just as important as knowing about the business. And for someone like me, where I have a part-time folks, but I mean, basically DCP is Kim. Mm-hmm. It's really important for folks to know me and see sort of these organic conversations like you and I are having, because that's where I find the most insight when I talk to people. And the way that we're interacting right now is the same way that I interact with clients, in terms of pick a topic. Let's talk about it. You want to talk about your business issues right now? Okay, we can do that. Or you want to talk about planting a garden and the organization around that? Guess what? I'm gonna make that connection. You can run your business like you're planting your garden too. Mm-hmm. But that level of interpersonal aspect, the organicness of it, that you can't plan out everything.
Right.
I mean, life is not a list of questions and answers, right?
Right.
So there's a level of that uncertainty of you're not going to know what the question is, and you shouldn't know, because that forces you out of your comfort zone. That forces you to think on the fly.
And be real, right? I mean, it forces you to be truthful, right? When you don't have that pre-thought out answer that's, maybe politically correct and checks all the different boxes, right? I mean, it's not you, I mean, and maybe you are politically correct, right? Now your answer is going to be that, whether you're asked organically or not. But there's definitely you're 100% right. There's an element of, when you throw that surprise at them, what answer is going to come out. And some people are just really good BSers too, man. I tell you what, some of them make it sound organic, and I'm like, ooh, you made that sound good. I don't believe a word of it, but you made that sound good for sure.
Which is a talent in of itself. It's about how you use it, right?
100%. Yeah, I mean, it goes to the Star Wars thing, right? The Jedi or the Sith, man. You're gonna use it for good or evil. So, but luckily, there's more good out there than evil for sure. Now, something else that can be kind of good or evil is social media. So, I want you to talk a little bit about what your social media journey has been like, personally, but mostly professionally. Obviously, you've started from kind of the ground up, I'm sure, in the last 3 years with DCP. So what has that journey been like for you?
So personally, I am not the biggest fan of social media. I think people overshare. I think there aren't enough boundaries. I think social media has created a platform for people to be assholes and nobody calls them out on it. And that's socially okay. Professionally, it's been an interesting journey because from what I just said, from a personal level, same discipline from a professional level as well, in that, yes, digital media and digital marketing is a huge part of running a business and having a successful business, regardless of how big or small you are. And it's something that you cannot avoid. You have to use that method. There used to be a time where you could pick newspaper, you could do cold calling, you could send out mailers and things like that. But those methods of communication, they're still around, but they're not around for the average target market that businesses are looking for these days. Those methods are used more for senior citizens or people who don't participate in social media anymore. So a business, you're forced to get into social media, whether you like it or not. And if you are a relatively private person, then you're going to approach social media from a professional aspect from an equally relatively private perspective. But therein lies the problem, because your business is owned by the public to a certain extent. You can't interact with folks. You can't build up clientele. You can't show your clients what your company is up to if you're not using the means that they are actively using to engage with them. So that can be a very big hurdle for some folks, small businesses mostly, to get over. One being the fact that you have to develop these skills yourself. Because most businesses, me, for example, I couldn't afford a social media manager when I first started my business.
Right.
So you have to learn how to go out there and promote yourself, to be open at this point, to even be open to say, I'm gonna create a Facebook site, or I'm gonna create a LinkedIn, and then actually maintain that. Mm-hmm. So that requires discipline. And if you are a relatively private person, that is going to be a level of change for yourself that you have to be intentional about getting over. And that can be very difficult. And I will say, for me, it was very difficult in getting over that in terms of doing things with DCP. Good example, I just went to Tanzania end of March, and I did a video blog of it. So out there on YouTube, I tried to do a every couple of days try to do a little vlog about my trip, who we're talking to, who we're meeting with, da 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 da. You have no idea how difficult it was to be intentional about sitting down. I'm gonna do a 5 to 7 minute video, 5 to 7 minutes, people, 5 to 7 minute video about this trip. And it wasn't even personal. It was business related, because I need people to know about me. I need people to know what we're up to and be able to share those stories and those narratives. But it was incredibly difficult to do that. And it's still incredibly difficult. That's one of the things that for me anyway, it's personal that I need to work on that from a business perspective. Now I can afford to hire a social media manager. I'm kind of refusing to, because I'm feeling like Kim is the brand. So people need to hear from Kim. People don't need to hear from random social media manager creating evergreen content that may or may not be related to what I'm doing. Right. So that's part of my advice and thoughts on social media from a business perspective is pick something small. Social media is hard. There are very social people like yourself that do this for a living, and they do it without thinking about it. And that's okay.
I hate social media too.
Because you're in the field, man.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, right? I mean, it is what it is. My boss will tell you, I am not a fan of social media. He gets on me. He's like, you got to get on there. You got to post more, man. You got to do, you got to let people, exactly what you're saying, right? And I know it, right? I'm like, you're right, Kevin. You're right.
And I know it too for myself. But it's a form that we can't avoid as a business. Right. So you have to find and create boundaries for yourself that you can live with and that you are comfortable with. Mm-hmm. Your business profiles from a social media standpoint should not look like your personal ones. The focus is different. The targets are different. Your intended goals are different. So that creates opportunity for you to create an experience as a business owner, as an employee of a company where you're working in the marketing section. That creates opportunity for you to create comfortable boundaries for yourself. But the issue is you have to create the boundaries. You have to create the goals, because you can't avoid it, unfortunately. So don't avoid it. Conquer the chaos. Just confront it. If you don't want to be on every single social media platform, don't be. Pick the ones that are best suited for your industry. I'm not on TikTok. I don't feel like TikTok is really applicable or usable for my nature of company. I can make short, stupid videos about random business things, but I don't feel like that's where I would get the most reach for for the type of clientele that I want to have. So it's the same for any company. Figure out the platforms that meet your need and then build up little bit by little bit. It's about progress, not perfection. And 3 years in, I am still not perfect with social media from a business perspective. I still say one of my goals this year is I wanted to start a weekly session similar to what we're doing right now, where I talk about business stuff. But every time I pull out that camera and turn it on and try to get something started, I freeze up, can't do it. It's a mental mind thing that I got to get over. But I recognize that. And I still have goals in mind, and I'm still little bit by little bit. So I did my vlog for Tanzania. I'm doing this interview with you today, and it's on.
I was going to say, we're making progress. You jumped on here today. You're killing it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's all we got to do. It's about the progress piece.
You're 100% right. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? And I think that's what holds a lot of people back, in our society, not only with social media, but with other things, is this ideal of perfectionism. And it was very much prevalent when I was growing up, right? That you had to do it perfect, right? Do it perfect. And at some point we started to move away from that, which is great. Or somebody just realized like, hey, it doesn't have to, like, it's better to do it imperfectly than to not do it at all, right? Because I feel like as a society, we were just like, all right, if we're not going to do it perfect, then we're just not going to do it. And that was like a good portion of my life. And at some point that just shifted to like, we got to get stuff done.
But what's interesting now is that genuineness and kind of that rough edge, that unfinished feel is in now.
Yeah.
You don't
Nike
have
is making a whole campaign about it. Have you seen the latest Nike commercials where
I have
they're
not.
no, check them out. Yeah, they're really well done. We saw them at our company. We were like, this is amazing. But it's all basically iPhone footage. You know, people have shot themselves. You know, there's no big production crew that Nike has brought into people's houses. It's literally just iPhone videos that people have taken themselves that they've edited together with their
That you
messaging.
can
Right?
edit on your phone at
It's
this point.
amazing. Yeah,
You don't
I
even
mean,
need
you can
software.
literally put out the same quality as Nike right now
Yeah,
with what you've got in your pocket, right? So it's pretty crazy.
That is what I love about that's one of the few things I love about social media, is that it does create opportunity for anyone at any level to be able to engage in. Even in Tanzania, where you have to pay for data and phones are expensive, you will still see people out there doing videos.
Oh yeah.
Which is really great. And for folks who are uncomfortable with projecting themselves out there into the world, that provides even more opportunity for you to create those comfortable boundaries for yourself. So you don't have to be a Kardashian. You can take your little Galaxy Ultra 2 and film yourself and put it out there. You don't even have to like edit it. You don't have to put all the pretty stuff like what we're seeing on the screen right now. You can literally put video out there. And that is an incredible way to engage with people. And it's been a comfort zone, a developing comfort zone for me, in that I can just be me. I can just do a video, look presentable, and put it out there and know that folks are going to be seeing me. They're seeing the real me, the person that they're going to interact with every day.
Right.
Not the Instagram filter.
Right.
So,
I think that's, yeah, you brought up so many great points there. I don't think we're going to be able to hit all of them, but I mean, yeah, it's, you know, it is you, right? And I think that's a common theme that comes up on the show a lot is the post-COVID, right? Because I think that's when a lot of that changed. You know, like before, people were buying not necessarily products, right? Like nobody was buying a Starbucks coffee because Starbucks coffee is the best coffee on the face of the planet. I mean, there's probably somebody out there that thinks that, but that's not why people go to Starbucks, right? It's because of the feeling that you get when you walk into the Starbucks. It's because of the convenience that they're on every single corner, right? It's very little about the actual cup of coffee. Now, though, it's more who's the barista that's making that coffee, right? You know, messenger coffee, kind of the same thing. You know, what's Isaac up to, right? I mean, it's walking into your gym and knowing the owner of your gym now and relating with that person. I mean, that's our buying habits have just changed so much in the last 3 years because of a lack of social, social ability, right? I mean, having the chance to get out and get social. So, you're 100% right. I mean, just putting yourself out there, right? I mean, and showing people who you are, especially in your line of business and in mine, right? Where it's
very people focused.
You want to work with people that you like because you're going to be talking to them a lot, right?
And part of that building up the trust is showing the vulnerability, showing the fact that you're imperfect, and that we're experts in our field to a certain extent. But that doesn't mean that we don't understand the in the trenches experience. It's because we experience that we're able to help you 20 years later.
Right. You know, it's really interesting too, and this just crossed my thought or my mind, is I think a lot of people get intimidated now by perfection. You know, I think it kind of takes away from the approachability of a company when you are perfect all the time, right? And you're always putting out that perfect messaging. It's like, man, you know, like I don't want to mess up, you know, especially when you're talking to like a consultant. What's that?
Funny you mentioned that. You know who mastered that is Wendy's.
Oh yeah.
On Twitter.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Great point.
They turned, give us a prompt and we're going to insult you on purpose.
Right.
That's the thing.
They were kind of the OGs. Yeah, they really were like the OGs of like, we're just going to start trash talking everybody. Just see what happens. Yeah, I don't know who the social media manager was that came up with or got that pass. I mean, going back to the corporate conversation, Whoever cleared that for the the social media manager
You
to get stuck
know,
on hard.
we've both been in corporate America. You know, that started off as somebody accidentally posting something, and it just happened to have a good response. And some ambitious manager was like, "Oh my God, we could take advantage of this."
Yeah, this is my
And
idea. This was planned the whole time.
this was planned. This was totally planned the whole time. And the great thing about that is that shows, for Wendy's anyway, it shows that you're being responsive, which is really great.
Right.
But by now, they also have the proper boundaries and structures in place that they can continue to leverage that to their benefit while not ending up with swastikas on their Twitter.
Right.
So that's definitely a good case study in terms of that aspect of perfection, corporate perfection, versus showing the humanity of the organizations behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get on to our next question here. I swear we're going to be here. I'm going to keep you here all day long. I'm just going to talk your head off. But now every superhero has a defining moment, Miss Kimberly. What do you think yours is when it comes to your life and your career?
My defining moment. I can pick one, and I will pick one and shut up.
You got two, feel free.
My defining moment was my last W-2 job.
Okay.
They actually created the position for me to be there, which was great. And I stayed there about 2 years before I was like, hey, I'm gonna start my own company. Well, on my way out, I had attended a company function. It was like a going away party for somebody else. And I happened to see the CEO there of the company that I just left. And he recognized me. I mean, of course he knew me, but it had been about maybe 6-8 months since he saw me. And he came over, he said hello, gave me a really great handshake, and he asked me how my business was doing. And at the time, I was still relatively new in terms of my business, so it was still a little iffy, but I wasn't going to tell him that.
Right.
And what I did was I pulled out I had these cool, clear business cards. So I pulled out a business card and gave it to him and said, hey, good to see you. I'm doing really well. I really wasn't. I'm doing excellent. Best decision I ever made, da, 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 da. And so he gave me another handshake, but it was different. It was the handshake of, I'm a CEO, you're a CEO, I'm shaking your hand on the same level. And it felt different. And he told me, as we had a really short interaction, and at the end of it, he was like, if you ever need anything, feel free to come reach out, come call me. You know how to find me. I'm happy to help. And I was like, okay, that was cool. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And the reason why that was defining for me is you never want to leave a job and feel like you burned a bridge.
Right.
And it certainly happens. And that's an unavoidable part of life. It happens.
Yeah.
And I did not leave this company on the best terms because they were upset that I was leaving. And they didn't want to believe it. And they were kind of negative and kind of petty. But to have the CEO come back to me, and in that opportunity, in that moment, to come at me with proper respect, that meant a lot because he's done a lot in his life. And I really respected him, and I still do respect him as a person, as a professional, for everything that he's done. So that meant a lot to me. And that really gave me good validation, because in that moment, you couldn't help but respect what I was doing. You may not have liked it for how it affected your company, but as a fellow entrepreneur, as a fellow professional, you had to respect the fact of what I did and how ballsy it was, and how I showed back up at your company event. And came over and said hi to you.
That is audacious. That is
audacious. Told you I'm going through changes. I warned you.
I love it.
But that was a really great defining moment for me. It really gave me some good validation that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and that
That's so powerful.
I could get the respect that I expected to get, because that means a lot.
That is awesome. That is
Yeah.
such a good story. You're gonna have to keep that one in your back pocket whenever you get up there and you're starting to win awards and stuff like that on these stages that I'm sure are coming for you, because that is a good story to pull out of the hip pocket,
Oh, and
and really.
caveat, you're talking about being audacious. I sent them I did my first time doing corporate gifts this past Christmas. I sent them a corporate gift.
Love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
So how ballsy is that?
Yeah. Did he reach out to you afterwards? Like, I don't know if he sent you a LinkedIn message or something like that.
No, unfortunately not. I don't think we made it that high.
Oh, we gotta go direct. We gotta go direct next time.
I know, right?
That's the strategy. We gotta, just straight to his office. Yeah.
Yeah. But lesson learned, though, that's an aspect of the imposter syndrome, because I could have sent him directly a corporate gift. But in the moment that I'm doing it, I was like, that feels like a lot. I'm really nervous about that. I don't know why I'm nervous. I shouldn't be.
Right.
I shouldn't be. But I ended up just sending it to the local office. And I was like,
Gotcha.
don't make it up to him, maybe. But yeah, you're exactly right.
Going right. We're going to hand deliver next year. I'm going with you. Let's do it.
Absolutely. We'll make a vlog about it.
I love it. All right, Kimberly, last question here for you. This is probably one of the better ones, and it gets quite a few people, so I'm curious of your answer. Now, if you had to pick any superhero that relates best to Kimberly Dewitt, right? What superhero would that be? And tell us a couple reasons why that hero relates best to you.
I'd have to say my favorite is Batman.
Okay.
And I'd say that because Batman and Bruce Wayne is a very nuanced person. He experienced a lot of trauma in his life. And good, bad, or ugly, he took that trauma and redirected it into a purpose for himself. And I can really feel that aspect of it, in that you understand you have a purpose in your life, and your purpose, you define your purpose. He's a socialite. He's a billionaire. He's got companies, blah, 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 blah. But he defined himself, and I feel that. So I love that aspect of there's nuance to him, which is the same for me. There are my personal friends that know me one way. There are my professional clients and associates that know me a different way. But those dual personalities and those various aspects of your personality, the sum total of that is who you are. And how you choose to define that and how you leverage that, the good and the bad. I mean, at one point he had his back broken. He came back from that, right? So that I really can speak to that feeling of taking the negative and redefining it for your own purpose.
Great. Yeah. I absolutely get it. Kimberly, you've been awesome. It's been so fun talking to you.
Likewise. This was fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. Now, how can people keep up with DeWitt Consultancy? I'm going to get that before the end of this. How can people keep up with DeWitt Consultancy? How can they follow what you're doing? How can they get a hold of you?
Yep. So we are across very limited social media, because not all social media applies to us. We are on Facebook under DeWitt Consultancy. We are on LinkedIn under DeWitt Consultancy Partners. And we're also out there on YouTube with a bunch of little numbers. So there's a link down there at the bottom. Feel free to Google us. Also, our corporate website is www.dewittconsultancy.com. From there, you are able to branch off into all of the other things that we're up to, like the TLA, my trainings, videos, things of that nature. My blog is out there. And then also there's a couple of other websites that you can link to from there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so definitely go check her out. She is obviously awesome. If you've stuck around for this whole episode, thank you. I'm sure you've had as much fun as we have. Kimberly, thank you again for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, are we still live? Hey guys, we're still live. Hey guys, this is Kevin Kwok, founder of J29 Creative Group. So who are we? We're a marketing agency here in Kansas City. We're all about a holistic approach to marketing that builds your brand and nurtures online community. But to be honest with you, you guys don't care.